starting your own business can actually take some of those barriers away from you. If you're in control and you're the business owner, you're not limited by what someone else necessarily thinks you're worth being paid. You're not limited by what sort of level of promotion you can get because of whatever things people might be prejudiced against you for, even if it's subconscious.
Welcome to the Her First podcast. We're all about helping female identifying business owners, coaches, and creators build their dream life by putting themselves in the driver's seat.
If you want to transform your business and build the life you want, then make sure to follow our podcast and stay tuned for what's next.
Welcome back to the Her First podcast. Whether you are in business or whether you're thinking about starting a business, the conversation we're having today is all about why you should or should not be in business altogether. Sometimes you have that question, is this meant for me? Am I going to do this? Maybe you're in a current business right now, but you're thinking about starting a different business. Or maybe you're an employee and you're thinking about starting a business. Maybe you're in a business and you're thinking about going back to being an employee. This conversation is going to cover some of those topics and get you thinking about what we think from our perspective, the clients, businesses that we've worked with, along with our own experiences, affect who and who should not start, maintain, be in business altogether.
I am such a big proponent of starting businesses. I think especially for women, it gives us financial freedom and ability to grow your career when you're not limited by what other people think you can do. We'll talk a lot about why you should start a business, but I think it's really important to know what you're getting yourself into when you decide to make that choice, because it's really easy to look at the glossy Instagram pictures or blog posts or books from all of these successful entrepreneurs and think, oh, I'm just going to go out there and see success. When you don't see the behind the scenes failures, struggles, actual reality of what it looks like. So I think it's important if you decide to take that step towards entrepreneurship, you know what you're getting into and you're kind of prepared for what to expect. Today, we're just going to talk about why you shouldn't or why you should start a business.
Impeccable point, because so often we see the glamorous side of business. We see the success. We see the 10 years down the road and the multi-million dollars, and we see the huge impact, and we see that exponential growth and that hockey stick and all those kinds of things. When realistically, I wish that someone had been a little bit more transparent, been a little bit more clear about what it would take to be in, start, and sustain, grow, scale a business so that I was prepared for that. Not necessarily to deter me from it altogether, but to set the realistic expectation of what I needed to invest from the get-go in order to see success quicker, more for the long term, and that kept me out of those like negative slumps that I feel like I went through when I felt like there's something wrong with me because I'm not reaching those levels of success. This conversation is all about that transparency and all about informing you about how you can approach business differently so that you can be successful. Again, not necessarily to deter you, but to give you an informed decision-making process. So we're going to talk generally about, again, experiences that we have and that we've seen with our clients. So let's go ahead and start with the shouldn't. Why you shouldn't start a business or why you shouldn't be in business. Because sometimes, you get started and realize this isn't right for me, and that's okay too. You should not be in business if you really, really need security in what you do. If you're not willing to take risks, if you really want to be safe, if you like things to be, somewhat status quo, and you want the security of an income, you want the security of what you do every single day, you want to stay in that comfort zone of, I know this, I get this, I can do this over and over and over again. And that's not a bad thing. People use comfort zone as a negative thing, I think, a lot, where people are pushing you outside of your comfort zone. And of course, I'm going to do that as a coach. As someone in the industry that I'm in, I'm always going to push people outside their comfort zone because that's where change happens. That's where growth happens. But being in that comfort zone is safe and it is comfortable. And it's okay to be in those seasons of your life or have that be your choice. If you are acknowledging to say, I see those things out there. I know that all of that growth happens, all that change happens outside of my comfort zone, but I'm comfortable right where I am and I'm happy and I'm content and I'm fulfilled. More power to you. They say that term that ignorance is bliss. And I've always really envied ignorant people because I feel like that state of bliss is totally warranted and it is a good thing and it is okay. If you feel like you need security, I don't think you should be in business for yourself and pursuing that route.
It's so true. You're just not gonna have the same stability as you would with a corporate job, a regular job. Now, I will say, sort of on the flip side of that, if you're working a corporate job, most people in the US are at-will employees. Like, you can get fired at any time, but you have, the protection of, like, unemployment, and your work history is gonna make it easy for you to find another job. So there is that sense of security and stability with your income, as well as like regular work and all of that. And when you work for yourself, if your business is struggling, you're struggling, right? And you have to be planned and prepared for that. Another reason why that maybe you shouldn't go into business is because the truth is businesses can take a lot of emotional labor. If you're working a corporate job and something takes a shift and you don't like it anymore, or you don't like the environment or the culture, you don't like what you do, you can kind of check out emotionally, right? Like, you can just do the work on the side, go find another job until you find something else, right? There's an out. Like, there's a really easy out for you if your career is no longer fulfilling. When you're a business owner, if something isn't going well, not to say you don't have an out or a power to change, you have to make that change. You have to turn the tides. You have to make those changes. And that can be really emotional work. Also goes with putting your work out in the world. If you are working for a corporate job and say you're in marketing and you run a campaign and it doesn't go well and it fails, you can have a lot of people to blame it on. You can blame product, you can blame engineering, or you can say, you know what, not my brand. It wasn't my idea. I was just doing what my boss said. There's this sense of separation. As an entrepreneur, you put something out in the world, it fails. In some ways, you have no one to blame but yourself. So I think that if you're a very, very emotional person, if you hold things really close to your heart and you haven't developed an ability to like separate a little from your work, it's going to be really hard for you. I'm really lucky that I kind of went down my entrepreneurship journey after I had learned some of that like emotional separation from my work, because I'm able to look at my work a little bit more objectively and a little less emotionally. But if you're not in that place, entrepreneurship could be very, very hard for you.
And that's not necessarily a skill that you can't learn. You can learn how to manage and navigate your emotions, but it's true. If you are so invested and tied to the outcome of what you're doing, it's going to be really hard in entrepreneurship and business ownership because you're always tying your worth, your sense of self, your enoughness into the outcome, the result of what you're doing. And that can be really taxing. It's also really not healthy from a mental health perspective. So, the other thing when it comes to why you shouldn't be in business is having someone to tell you what to do. So, as an employee, there is some freedom, and depending on the role that you have, obviously, sometimes you're making decisions, you're setting the strategy, but ultimately, you are paid to do a thing. If you are the owner, the founder, essentially everything kind of stops with you, and you're the one who gets to make the tough decisions. Whereas that is empowering, and there's a lot of freedom with that. And it's also the reason why we choose entrepreneurship a lot of times. It can also be really hard, challenging, inhibiting for some people. So if you're the type of person who just wants, I just want a set schedule. I just want to know what I'm going to do. I just want to show up and have someone say, this is your task, this is your activity throughout the day. Then you're probably better in an employee position, or maybe even, now I won't even say it because I was going to say sticking with the freelancer role, but even still, there's so much initiative that has to take place if you're in a freelancer role, a side hustle role of like figuring out where that next client is going to come from, how you're setting your contracts, what that working relationship is going to be. If you don't have a commitment to push that work forward, of doing it yourself, of going and making it happen, then it's probably best to stay in an employee role until you're ready to take on that responsibility, or to be able to push yourself to stay accountable to you. Or maybe you have a co-founder. Joanna and I mentioned that a lot. Like with my own business and my own work, that's all me. I'm showing up. I'm doing the thing. I'm making the decisions. I'm pointing the direction, and I'm happy with that. With this podcast, it's a little bit more like I know exactly what I'm going to do because Joanna and I have a system, and I'm accountable to Joanna. And so if you can find that person who's of an equal level to you that you can be accountable to, like a co-founder, co-business owner, then that's great too. But just knowing that you are going to be the one who's driving the ship.
Such a good point. And right, if you're not the type of person who can kind of self-direct and wake up every day to get that work done, it doesn't mean you can't. be an entrepreneur. It's something to think about. And also, maybe for you, a co founder would have a big impact where you have someone who you're accountable and can work together with. I think that could be huge for you. Another thing that I see a lot of business owners kind of falter on is they might be an expert in their field. Say they're an expert therapist or an expert website builder or something like that. And they go into business to do something related to their field and create a business out of it. And I'm not saying they can't do that, but they don't necessarily have had developed the business skills, the marketing skills, the sales skills to put that on. And one thing I've seen happen with people in that world when they're such a deep, experienced subject matter expert, they run out of money really fast because they need to hire experts to do all of the things around them. If you're some sort of practitioner, subject matter expert who is wanting to go into business, you either have to learn, do the work and learn those business development skills, or you need to have enough capital to hire someone to do that for you, right? Someone who can actually come in or find a co-founder to be that person for you. Because I see it happen a lot of times and I've seen work built by people that they're so deeply good at what they do, but they don't either understand business marketing or sales in a way that sets them up for success in their business.
Yeah, this is actually a big one in my list as well, is being a good practitioner. Just because you're really good at doing a certain thing doesn't mean that you're going to be good at running the business. And that's something I wish I'd learned early on because I came from a practitioner mindset. It also means that if you are going to go in this direction, that you need to be able to shift roles and you need to be able to assume different skills. So, as someone who came from fitness, was a coach, someone who taught, someone who really loved what I did from a physical fitness perspective. When I started doing my own work or shifting into my own business, and that's with like individual clients that I was signing on and then creating products and programs, I was coming at it with a practitioner mentality. And that was not good for marketing or sales. And so, even though maybe the administrative business side of things wasn't a problem, I wasn't approaching the marketing, the sales side of things, the digital presence with the right mindset, the perspective, or even the skill set with the background to understand what that looked like. I didn't understand social media marketing. I didn't understand email marketing. I didn't understand funnel building and digital ad creation and like all of those things. And it's not to say that you have to know all of those things before you start your business, because don't wait for that to happen. But ultimately, if you're coming at it just in terms of like, I'm really good at this thing, I'm going to start my own business in order to reach and impact more people, that's not going to cut it. You've got to figure out how you can either better understand the marketing and sales aspect of business building as a whole, or I would say go into business with someone who does understand it, because Joanna is 1000% right. You're going to spend a lot of money upfront on teams and services and coaches who likely aren't actually going to get you the return on investment that you're looking for. And that's a mistake that I made. That's a mistake that I see a lot of practitioners make. If you really love what you do, just do it. Find a clinic, find a studio, find something that you can manage while maybe you're building and learning those other skills of marketing, business, and sales.
I think I said, did I share this in a podcast or it might have just been to you, Michelle? My failed businesses. But one of the first things that I did as an entrepreneur was to create an app. And it was a great little app, worked really well. We got a bunch of users really, really fast. And then myself and my co founder, we got really busy and had to put it aside for a little while, and we're going to come back to it. By the time we came back to it, apps had updated. Now, neither of us, this is the key here, neither of us are web developers or know how to make apps. So we hired someone to make the app for us. When we did that, times were tougher for freelancers. We invested some money in building it and it went great, but it was affordable. It was like a reasonable thing for us to do. That was fantastic. When we came back to do a second phase of development for updates, all developers' prices went way up. It became way too expensive for us to invest. We still may do some. We haven't decided exactly what we're doing with this app yet. That's TBD. But one thing that I think about is looking back on it, I wish we had involved a technical co-founder in our group because we did not have the skills to update the app, make those changes. And those are really expensive skills to invest in. So my two thoughts are starting out either having a technical co-founder or actually building something that like that later in my entrepreneurship journey when I have capital from my other businesses that I could invest in someone to be available to build and develop. So when you're thinking about your business idea, actually understanding the pieces of the business, the expenses that are involved, and like, do you have what you need to build that? Do you have access to the capital if you need things to build that? And actually just think that through. And sometimes if you're in your head, you want to be a serial entrepreneur and run lots of businesses and you don't have access to capital, you don't necessarily want to take out a loan or get investment right away. Thinking about what you can actually accomplish on your own without needing money could be a really good thing to think about.
So important to understand the skill set that you're going to need. And you can find those people. Like, that's why there are co founders who complement each other. That's why you have teams of 3 or 4 that start tech companies. Like, there are people in terms of skill sets that you have to have from the beginning that it's okay to find partnership and collaboration in. I definitely wish that I'd done that from the beginning as well, is just decide this is the type of business that I want to create. I want a co-founder who's going to complement me in this way, and then go out, find that. And you have people to lean into and who are going to inspire you. And you don't just feel isolated or alone as you're driving the ship and moving it forward. One quick pro tip that I have learned, and this is what I would have done differently, is actually starting with a business that had a higher profit margin. So selling things that make more money would have been my first business, as opposed to something that was like higher quantity, lower cost and investment price point, right? So if you look at some of the more successful business models, let's just use Tesla, for example, in terms of where Elon Musk started. With the Tesla line of cars, he started with the most high end version, the most expensive. And then he started downgrading or eventually creating a more economy car that was accessible to more people. So you want to start with a higher price point, more niche, more focused, more specific, more profit margin, and then you can move into quantity. Same thing with Alex Hermosi. He did the same thing, selling super high ticket services before he downgraded or, created a lower ascension model, capitalized on a lower cost, but higher quantity. Especially because as you're getting started, you're probably not going to have a high quantity of followers, audience members, people in your network that are going to purchase from you. And so if you start with a smaller audience, higher price point, you can make more money up front and then invest later on when you grow to a lower cost thing. So that's a total aside. The next shouldn't that I would recommend for people not getting into business is if you genuinely want to make money quickly and easily. I know that there are stories out there that do work, but they're few and far between and they're very small percentage. Most people spend years, literal years, doing what they're doing something else and failing, trying. Again, Elon Musk, what was it? SpaceX almost went bankrupt doing what they're doing. And they were literally like on their last test model that if it didn't work, they were going under. You cannot typically make money quickly or easily as a business owner. If you want to make money quickly and easily, go out there, do some work, get money under your belt, rely on that. If you do not have a model that you know how to make sales with, and this is again something that I didn't do very well. I didn't have a reliable, repeatable system in order to gain clients, to make money, to make sales. So it was very haphazard for me in the beginning. And I thought that I could continuously do that in that haphazard way without having a reliable source of lead acquisition and client acquisition. Like it just wasn't there. And so if you need to make money quickly and easily, I wouldn't recommend business in order to do that because it's more of a long game.
Like if I were to want to make money quickly and easily, like right now, freelancing might be a way to go because like, and I will point blank, I will tell you, I would definitely make more money right now as a freelancer than running my business. What you're saying, the business being the long game, right? I could go out and probably make 20K a month on 5 social media clients and do all of the work myself, right? Like I could probably do that and that would be fantastic. Maybe I should. But that's not the long game because I lose one client, I'm out that money. I want to take a week off. When do you take a week off? When you're working by yourself, right? That's kind of the short game. And you're not actually building a business. using your abilities with multiple people. You're an employee of multiple people. You're not running a business. With a business, you're building something that theoretically lives on without you, that you could sell, that you could take a step back, hire someone to replace you and live off the profits because it exists in and of itself. And that's a very different thing, right? If you just want that quick cash, there's other ways to get that than trying to create a whole business. I think you also really need to think about your business model before going into business. One of the things, and is that business model profitable? Like you were saying, Michelle, earlier, one of the things that my husband and I thought about doing once was opening a gym. My husband's really into working out. I was at one point, now I don't. We really thought about opening a gym and we started researching it. We bought books, we were looking into it, we were making our business plan. And as we dug into it, we learned some really interesting things generally about gyms. Your gym, that's like the Planet Fitness model, low cost membership, those make money because like 30% of the people actually use their memberships. And that's only way gyms like Planet Fitness make money is because they're literally counting on you not to show up. If everyone who bought a membership showed up, they could not be profitable. The other type of gym that makes money are super high cost gyms that are a couple $100 a month, where they're very high touch, small groups. Those types of gyms make money. The gyms in between typically barely get by. And when we were looking at it, the type of gym and what we were looking at doing wasn't going to be one of those two models because we actually wanted to like help people get stronger and get in their health. And actually neither of those models fit us. It would have been that in between. We were like, well, we can't do this if it's not going to make us money. So actually understanding the business model you're getting yourself into, like, is it profitable? You could love to do something, but if you can't make a profit on it, it's not going to be a sustainable business for you.
One of my favorite things to say, and the more that I learn about business and the more that I'm in these industries, a business is not a business is not a business. And even though someone maybe on the front side of things is like, this is great, you don't know the back end. And I felt like as I was growing up, I saw business owners as restaurant owners, as gym owners, as massage practitioners, as big industry people, but I always thought that was totally separate. But I always felt like, oh, well, business owners are successful. They make plenty of money, but they don't. Lots of business owners are simply in debt. Lots of business owners are either just making it by, maybe they're in the black, but most of them aren't usually in the green, especially for years once they get open. So it is smart to consider the type of business that you're planning on opening. Even if you're going into the digital space, I think there's a common misconception that there's no overhead with running a digital business, and that's just false, especially if you're looking at it from a business perspective. If you're a freelancer or a content creator, like I have no animosity here, and knowing the fact that I have really struggled to make money in my business overall throughout what I've done. But I do look at like content creators, for example. Content creators are not necessarily running businesses, even though they may have a business identity, like a sole prop or an LLC, or maybe even a corporation underneath what it is that they're doing. In my mind, the perception of it is still almost like a freelancing, right? You're working with brands, you're working out the partnerships yourself, you're creating the content, like you're doing the thing. The difference between that and actually having a business in place where, like Joanna has a team, they have systems, they're delivering a service, it would technically operate without her if she somehow needed to step away. Like once you start having a business engine that runs like that, that's kind of the idea and the concept that you're working toward as a business function. I don't know why I got on this tangent, but it is important to think about the business model that you're approaching, how you're doing it, and what that looks like over time. Because maybe you start in the freelancing, maybe you start in the content creator space, and then you want to expand it more into like a sustainable business model that is scalable, repeatable, and that has systems in place that you don't necessarily directly contribute to. It's not to say that it's not a business, but it's not a business in the same way that other businesses are. The next thing that I feel like people should really, really think about and consider in terms of business ownership or not is your motivation to actually do it. A lot of people will say their motivation to start their business is because they want to help people. And that cannot be your reason, like truthfully. If you want to help people, just go into the field or industry that you are in and do it for someone else. Like do it as an employee, do it as a coach for another company, or like whatever that looks like. do it in that way if you solely want to help people. That fact alone will not contribute to, again, the business, the marketing, the sales aspect of your business. And if anything, it's going to inhibit you because you're almost always going to be coming at it from this place of like, oh, well, I just want to help this person. I can't charge them this much, or maybe I can help them in this way, or maybe I can do this other thing, or maybe I can, it's just, I think, the wrong mentality to approach business and to approach being able to develop a product, a program, a service to bring to the world. Now, can your business help people? Absolutely. Do lots of businesses have this foundation of wanting to help people and change the world? 100%. But it cannot be the sole motivation, reason, and why you're doing what you're doing, because I've seen so many examples of people who have this belief system that then aren't able to execute in business. And then they become resentful because the clients aren't understanding that they want to help them, and then the clients aren't being helped and no customers are buying from them and they don't get it, and now they're just frustrated because they have all of this beautiful work that they can do for the world and impact that they can make, but things aren't coming through to fruition from a business perspective. So don't let that be your only reason or motivation if you want to be in business.
Yeah, and take that example of someone who they say, "I wanna go into business because I want to help people." That business needs something else to stand on. If you're helping people, I don't know, say you wanna help elderly people with lawn care, I don't know, and you're like, "I just want elderly people to have help with lawn care." The business isn't you helping them. The business would be the system, the service. Maybe you create an app that connects young teens who need volunteer hours with old people to do their lawn, right? That's a business and creating that connection or that thing. So you have to think like bigger beyond helping people, and your motivation has to be about having that business entity exist or that thing that you're creating exist. Yeah, you really want to create something that you're bringing something into the world, which I think is a great transition to talking about why you should own a business. So hopefully you've gotten through this part and you're like, okay, that's a lot of reasons why I shouldn't start a business. And there are a lot of reasons why you shouldn't start a business, but there are a lot of really good reasons to start a business. My first should is actually not a good reason, but I'm going to share it anyway. Earlier, Michelle, you said something along the lines of you shouldn't start a business if you need to be told what to do. I think the reason I'm an entrepreneur is I hate when people tell me what to do. Like, I really don't like when people tell me what to do. I want to be able to set my schedule, pick the things I want to focus on, and do that. I don't really like people telling me what to do. And so for me, I was never going to be happy as just an employee being told what to do, fitting in a machine. I always wanted to be setting the roadway, making it go forward, and deciding what I'm going to do every day and what like my ship is going to do every day. I'm an entrepreneur because I couldn't be anything else. And I think that's something to think about. If you're in an employee situation and it doesn't work for you, you feel like a square peg in a round hole and it's just not feeling right, that could be a sign that you should go into business, that you want that freedom and you want the ability to go for it. Now, you have to, with that, then take all of the risks, all of the work, all of the emotions, but that could be a reason why you should do that.
I think a lot of the things that we talked about when it comes to shouldn't, you're going to see the reverse as the should in a lot of ways. And so, one of the things I think in terms of motivation that is really important is that you want certain things, you want specific things, you desire this lifestyle, you desire this way of being, you desire this for your profession and how you show up in the world and what it is that you're doing with your time and your energy. And a lot of times being okay with being told what to do fits into that employee mindset. Whereas the opposite of entrepreneurship is freedom. It's time freedom, it's financial freedom, it's decision making freedom, it's the ability to follow your passions and your interests and to lean into that instead of, again, having to fulfill work that maybe doesn't fit along the guidelines of how you want to show up in the world. And so I think if you do want that freedom, there is a lot to entrepreneurship and business ownership that can offer that. That being said, you've seen that quote that says basically like, well, I traded my 9 to 5 for 24/7, or I traded my 9 to 5 for thinking and doing and working in my business way more. Is that if you are a business owner, if you are an entrepreneur, everybody approaches this differently. So it's not an all across the board. Some people do work less hours. Some people do have seasons. Some people do this differently. I'm not saying that if you get into business ownership and entrepreneurship that you're just going to have all of this time on your hands to do whatever you want. It's more about the control. It's more about how you get to determine and dictate your schedule. It's more about saying, these are the things that I want to be doing with my time and investing my energy in. And so I'm going to focus on that. And then I'm going to either hire out, delegate, or organize the other pieces so that I get support. And you can't always do that in a job. Not to say that it doesn't happen in a job too, but that's just kind of the comparison. So I think that freedom is such an integral part of being a business owner. And if you desire that as a part of what you're doing and you're okay with maybe that being 60, 80-hour work weeks, not to say that it is, but if you're okay with the commitment of time and energy that it takes to run, operate, execute in your business, but that you get to be in charge of it and it's fulfilling in that way. Like some people honestly could probably be doing the same things in their employee job versus business and ownership, entrepreneurship. They could literally take it and do the exact same tasks and activities. But as a business owner, they're going to feel more empowered and more free because they're working on their own project. And that is when you know, yes, this is something that I should be doing.
Yeah, and theoretically, if your mindset is like, I'm going to be working hard, and I'd rather actually choose what I'm going to work on, when I'm going to work on, who I'm going to work on with, then entrepreneurship is likely for you. And to your point earlier, Michelle, you were talking about trading your 9 to 5 for a 24/7. It always makes me think of like when people talk about the 4-hour work week. I'll be perfectly honest. I think it's bullshit. People who say, like, "I have a 4-hour work week," like, I do not believe it. I don't. And I think they're either lying or they are greatly underestimating the help around them. Like, they're greatly underestimating, like, the invisible labor around them doing the work. I think back to times when I was in a corporate job, my boss would think everything was easy. He would just be like, "Oh, just whip up a promotion for this new thing," because he didn't think about every little thing that went into promoting an event, getting people to that event, getting them in a funnel afterwards for a course and all of that. He was like, "Oh, well, I decided the event was on this day, done," and not actually seeing all of the work. I am convinced that like those people who say they have 4-hour work weeks are either very privileged to have people just around them, propping them up with them being completely unaware, or they just like literally spend a lot of money on labor to do all of the things. I don't believe it.
And a lot of that can come down to systems, automations, but usually people had to put in a certain amount of time and energy to get there. I'm not saying that you can't have the work life balance from the start. There are definitely great solopreneurs, entrepreneurs, online coaches who have demonstrated that they can do a 4-day work week instead of a 7-day work week. You know, when you're intentional about what it is that you're doing, you're showing up consistently in the way that is effective and you have targeted messaging and effective systems, like you can absolutely curate your schedule to what you want it to be. But a lot of times people have put in a lot of time and energy leading up to that shorter work week or that shorter work day. And then sometimes they don't always take into account, like, oh, maybe I'm on social media, or maybe I'm responding to emails, or maybe I'm having phone calls, or maybe I'm thinking about this thing, or maybe I'm creating content. They don't always consider that time frame. So just being mindful about the realistic picture of what it looks like for them, but also for you, and knowing that either or is okay.
The point is, if you're an entrepreneur, you should enjoy the work that you do and pick things that you're going to enjoy and want to do, because then you're going to love it and you're going to want to go to work. You're going to want to be doing it when you're doing it. And then you're going to take your breaks and be, and refresh and do that as well and find that balance. But when you're the entrepreneur, you get to decide what that is. When something's not serving your business anymore, you can stop it. When a client, if you have clients, isn't working well for you, you can stop your contracts. Like you have that power, and that's just really awesome. Another big reason why I think entrepreneurship is so important and something I encourage people to do is I think that entrepreneurship can really change your wealth creation. So if you are a woman, if you don't come from a wealthy family, if you don't have an academic background, if you didn't have people that had connections to help you get a job, if you're someone who historically, because of race or ethnicity, has missed out on promotions or has a hard time getting certain levels of job because of prejudices against you. Starting your own business can actually take some of those barriers away from you. If you're in control and you're the business owner, you're not limited by what someone else necessarily thinks you're worth being paid. You're not limited by what sort of level of promotion you can get because of whatever things people might be prejudiced against you for, even if it's subconscious. Taking that step into entrepreneurship, all of a sudden, yes, you have to work hard, obviously, but some of the ceilings that exist in the corporate world aren't there. Like you can reach certain heights and you can potentially now, maybe not right away, but you can potentially change, if your typical family wealth level is one place, you can technically kind of jump a couple and like do that for your family, which can be huge.
Absolutely. We just had a guest, Annabelle DeGrazio from Taja Collection. You can go check out that episode about her founder experience and how she's created and crafted a candle company. She commented on the fact that being a female founder for her actually hasn't been inhibiting. If anything, it was more inhibiting in a corporate setting. So I think that we are in an age where, independent of who you are and how you show up in the world, with identity, you can really embrace the entrepreneurship, the business ownership space because there's going to be a community that supports you in a big way. Like, yeah, you're absolutely going to get haters too, but there's going to be a lot of folks who are going to rally behind you. And there's a lot of funding and grant opportunities and support for minority owned businesses. So, whether that is veterans, whether that is woman owned, whether that is BIPOC, whether that is Hispanic, there are a lot of options for different identified people in so many different ways, which I think can be a really beautiful, wonderful thing. So, one of the reasons I think that you should start a business is because you've identified a problem that you can truly solve for people. Like, that is the foundation of business. And having gone through all of the pitch deck preparation that I've had to be honest, beverage company over the past several months, really dialing in and drilling down what the problem is that you solve for people and who you solve it for is such a critically important part of business. It helps people understand what you're doing. It helps bring your product to market. It helps you get funding. It helps you identify how you show up in the world, what your brand is going to be, what your channels are going to be, the way in which you're going to engage with people, the way you're going to support them, like all of those things. So if you're just like, well, I want to help people and I can help people get healthy, that is not a problem that you solve for people in a specific and curated way. Go work for someone who does health already, someone who has something in place. Go work for a gym, go work for a studio, go work for like a health coaching agency that delivers health coaching on a broader scale and they already have the systems in place and the business and the marketing in place to make that happen. But if you have a unique problem, like I'll give this example because I think it's kind of a funny one, is this brand Tushy. They created an accessible, user friendly, can put on any toilet bidet, and it went bonkers from their marketing right up front. It's not to say that there weren't bidets beforehand, but they weren't financially accessible. They were cumbersome to install. People didn't use them on a consistent basis. People didn't understand them. So that company identified a clear problem that people were having and they know how to solve it. And they did that well. And so with their launch and what they're able to do, they're making millions off of a freaking bidet. One of the ways in which to identify if you should, can start, grow, scale, continue to run your business is identifying that problem and truly being able to solve it for your customers.
Yeah, and one way to do that, it can be a very tangible problem, or maybe you have a very tangible skill and a unique way of doing that skill to help someone achieve a desired result. For me, what's really interesting is that my specific skill set, what I'm good at is helping business owners systematize their businesses, which is like a really feels like a weird skill set to have. And there's some really unique things that I do that help those people. So what I've done in my business is taken what I would do to grow a business and systematized it, turn it into a product and turn that into a business. So if you're like, I want to be an entrepreneur and I don't know what my unique thing is, think about what you do that is uniquely you and think about how you uniquely show up in the world. And maybe you are a health coach, just saying, I want to help people get healthy. That's not quite enough. But maybe you have a really unique approach. Maybe you have ways to motivate people that are outside the norm. Maybe there's something very unique about what you do that makes that special, and that you have your own framework, your own thing that you're going to put out into the world. So think about what those things are. And if you have that unique approach that you want to turn into a business, you could probably ask me and I'll help you how to do it. Because I don't always have those unique ideas, but I know how to take that unique idea and turn it into a business. Now I know my unique skill and have learned how to turn that into a business. So you have to like have that difference of thought.
Absolutely. And it's not to say that you can't be a health practitioner and help people get healthy. That could be the overarching thing of what you do. But say that you are a nutrition coach who specifically teaches people how to use spices in their kitchen so they don't eat bland food while they're trying to lose weight. That is going to be a much more effective business model and approach to what it is that you're doing, as opposed to just like, oh, well, I just want to help people feel good. That's not going to cut it anymore. Maybe at one point, yes, but we are in a totally different world right now where you have to be specific. You have to go after the niche. And I don't even like that idea and concept because I used to really like hit my head against it. But truly, you have to have a niche and a focus for what it is that you're doing, because the world is so large and there are billions of consumers out there. And you've got to be able to speak to a curated slice of them instead of course, trying to reach all of them. So, the last thing that I'll say as we start to wrap up this conversation of why you shouldn't or should start a business, or if you're in business and questioning whether it's a good fit for you, really, because it's never a bad time to reassess your priorities, reassess your circumstances, and what it is that you're doing in the world and how you're showing up. So, you can always question this at any time. I question it every single day. So, this is the thing that I really think that you should start a business because of. You actually enjoy business concepts. So this was a big flag for me, is that when I went from practitioner to business owner, is that instead of listening to, watching, being engaged in practitioner content where I was learning about the body, I was learning about the systems, I was learning about how to coach people, I was learning about all those things, I actually started shifting my content consumption to business ownership, leadership, marketing, sales, like other skills that were going to help the business aspect of what I was doing. And I realized I actually liked them. I even liked them more than the content that I was consuming as a practitioner. So that was something to me that was like, ding, ding, green flag. Business ownership is the direction I want to go, because I want to lead teams, because I want to inspire, because I want to have that more visionary approach to what we do, show up, lead the strategy, have the concepts of like where we're heading, and then have a team in place to be able to execute. Again, there's a slight distinction here. And I'm not just saying that solopreneur companies can't make money, but we're talking about businesses that have a little bit more of a structure with a team in place. And so having a bigger vision of what that looks like, having a plan for scale, identifying a business model that might be potential for exit or IPO or like something like that. And I know that a lot of our coaches, a lot of content creators, they're not thinking that big or at that scale, but I think that's what's inhibiting them. I think that's the mindset that is going to keep them from growing at the scale and the rate that they want to, and why they struggle for so long with this business. Because I see it all the time in my business masterminds, in the groups that I'm a part of, in the language that they're using. They consistently think of themselves as the practitioner, and they just can't figure out how they want to take that next step. And it's because they haven't approached it as a business owner. They haven't aren't interested in learning the larger business pieces. And so I forget what the percentage is. The majority of especially women owned businesses never make it past the $25,000 a year mark, which is wild, because that's not $25,000 a year is not going to run a business. It's not going to grow a business. It's not going to provide enough for you to be able to have your business be your sole source of income. But so many business owners get stuck at that level. And I think it's because they're approaching their business as a practitioner, as a doer of what it is that they think they want to, how they want to serve in their business. And so you have to actually enjoy business as a concept and a content topic. You have to want to lead, inspire, grow a team with talent acquisition, and not just management, but being able to create that culture and environment in what you're doing. And then you got to have a bigger vision. You've got to know that this is going somewhere. And that's when I feel like, yes, start the business, do the thing.
And I know we talked a lot, even in our shoulds, about the shouldn'ts. I think we got in that mode, right? And we're like in that. I don't want that to deter people from trying. If you listened and you were like, maybe I shouldn't do this, but you have an idea, you can start small. Are you going to learn the business side? Are you going to do the things? Are you intrinsically motivated? Are you going to keep going and see if it's right for you? Like, that's fair. And it's okay if it's not right for you. We on this podcast are all about women having the power to live the life they want. And it's good to see the good and the bad and the reality of the situation so you can make an informed decision on what you want to do. And so the big thread for me for starting a business is that financial freedom, is that ability to make, as a woman, to be able to make money. You know, women owned businesses not making a lot of money makes me want to have lots of women owned businesses who make lots of money. But you have to know what you're getting into and know the reality that you're going to face so that you're prepared and you're informed and you're ready to go out and create that business that is going to make more than $25,000 a year. And going into it knowing this is going to be hard. I might need investment. It might take a couple of years for me to actually be profitable is really important when making that choice to go towards entrepreneurship.
The more prepared you can be, the more thoughtful you can be about your roadmap, about your strategy, about how you're going to make money and sustain yourself and the business, the better off you will be. So many people, I think, get into business because, especially in the online space, because it is a low barrier to entry, because people are saying, hey, you can do this affiliate program and make hundreds of thousands of dollars. Hey, you can do this MRR thing and make millions of dollars in a month. There's an unrealistic expectation that's been set in the digital space when really you can go down a pretty dark rabbit hole if you try and don't see the success that others are having, that you've set yourself up for failure by not having clear expectations, by not setting the strategy, the roadmap, and understanding some of these principles. So we just want to help guard against that. That's not to say that people aren't doing tens of millions of dollars in the digital space, because they absolutely are. It's just a different approach. It's a different mindset. Understanding those things is super important to your success and making sure that you avoid some of these pitfalls. So thank you so much for tuning in. Hit that subscribe button, follow along with her first, and we'll see you in the next one. Thanks for tuning in. Find the link in the show notes to join us in our free Facebook group to discuss the podcast, ask questions of our guest experts, and network with a group of female entrepreneurs who value collaboration over competition.
Please subscribe, share, leave a review, and be sure to catch our next episode. What is one thing you can do today to prioritize you in business and life?